When Melania Trump made a loaded jab on live TV, Jasmine Crockett didn't clap back, she filed a $100 million lawsuit. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Journalists, educators, and lawmakers had gathered for a nationally televised White House education panel in Dallas, Texas. It wasn't supposed to be dramatic, just a civil discussion about federal funding for public schools. But what happened on that stage sent shockwaves across the country. 5 women, all from different political stripes, sat on stage. Among them, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, invited for her bold track record on equitable education policy. Behind them, American flags. Before them, a smiling audience. Jasmine had just wrapped a sharp, data-driven statement on teacher retention in rural districts when Melania Trump stepped to the podium. Calm, expressionless, Melania began with routine praise for a literacy initiative. Then, with a quick glance toward Jasmine, her tone shifted, ice cold. It's interesting to hear from those who've used taxpayer dollars for, let's say, designer shoes and boutique hotels. Not classrooms. Silence. Instant. Thick. She didn't say Jasmine's name, but she didn't have to. Everyone in the room, and watching from home, knew exactly who she meant. Melania returned to her notes like she hadn't just dropped a live grenade in the middle of a national broadcast. There was no follow-up, no moderator correction. Just the scraping of a chair and someone's sharp inhale in the front row. A line had been crossed. Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned back slightly and folded her hands, silent, controlled, camera ready. Her eyes did all the talking. She wasn't giving them the viral clip they were waiting for. Behind the scenes, her staff froze. Her legislative aide, Brianna Ogles, sitting in the second row, mouthed, "What the hell?" and immediately began scrolling. The clip hit X and Instagram within 60 seconds. 30 seconds later, someone had already added subtitles. The panel continued for another 20 minutes, but no one was paying attention. The real story was already unfolding on screens across America. As the panel wrapped and the women exited backstage, a reporter called out, "Congresswoman Crockett, any response to the First Lady's comment?" Jasmine didn't stop. Didn't blink. Just kept walking, heels clicking like punctuation marks against the tile. Inside the car, Brianna leaned forward from the back seat. "Want me to draft a post?" Jasmine shook her head. "No. Let them talk. We're not doing this online." "But she just accused you of stealing money." "On camera." "She didn't say my name," Jasmine said calmly, staring out the window. "But she made sure they knew who she meant. This wasn't petty. This wasn't a slip." Jasmine knew exactly what it was, a calculated political hit job, designed to draw blood. That night, Jasmine's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, colleagues calling, reporters emailing, friends texting screenshots. Hashtag taxpayer dollars, hashtag boutique hotels, hashtags born from a lie. Conspiracy accounts claimed Jasmine had stayed at a $900 a night spa in Arizona, pure fiction. Her mother in Waco called twice. On the second call, she was crying. "Why would she say that about you, baby?" Jasmine sighed. "Because she thinks she can." But Melania miscalculated. By morning, the story had gone nuclear. The clip played on every major outlet, from CNN to TikTok. Over 5 million views in 24 hours. Some added dramatic soundtracks. Others zoomed in on the icy glare Melania had aimed Jasmine's way. But it wasn't the views that worried Jasmine, it was the comments. "She's been stealing from us for years. Look at her expense reports, probably Gucci and lobster dinners. Lock her up." This wasn't bot traffic. These were real people. Teachers. Parents. Voters. Repeating a lie as if it were fact. At her Dallas district office, the mood was stunned. Staffers circled around the main table. Brianna had their inbox open. The subject lines said it all, thief. Resign now. You don't speak for us. Some emails linked to fake PDFs claiming to expose leaked documents. Others contained threats so direct, Brianna forwarded them to Capitol Police. This isn't just a hit piece, she whispered. This is a wildfire. Jasmine stood behind her desk, scrolling through her own inbox. One message caught her eye, a superintendent in Lubbock she'd worked with. Representative Crockett, I know none of this is true. Just want you to know we've got your back. The only kindness she'd seen all day. How many interview requests? She asked. 15 national, 10 local, 2 international, Brianna replied. And every headline already prints the accusation, Jasmine said bitterly. Even the ones trying to defend me. Another staffer chimed in. That's how this works. The lies in the headline. The truth? Maybe paragraph 3. Outside. A small crowd had already gathered. One woman held a sign, "We know what you did." A man yelled about government fraud. It wasn't political anymore, it was personal. They were showing up at her office. Her staff was scared. Her family had been pulled in. Her younger cousin, a school counselor in Tulsa, called in tears. They asked if our family really did that shady D.C. stuff. I told them no. I told them you're not that kind of woman. I know, Jasmine said quietly. But now the doubt is there. This wasn't just about public image. It was about her name. Her integrity. Later that afternoon, her phone rang again. Blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Congresswoman Crockett, a man's. You don't know me, the voice on the line said, but I'm calling because you need to know something. I used to work on the White House communications team. Jasmine froze. What is this about? I saw the panel, he replied. And I saw what she did. Just watch your email in the next 48 hours. That's all I'm gonna say. He hung up before she could respond. Jasmine stared at her screen, her own reflection staring back in the dark glass. You all right? Brianna asked, stepping in. Jasmine nodded slowly. No. But I think we're about to find out just how far this goes. Before anything else, Jasmine had a decision to make, how to fight back, and whether she was ready to move this battle from media headlines into a courtroom. It was a closed-door meeting, just 5 people inside Jasmine's private office. They all looked like they hadn't slept. The mood wasn't angry, it was focused, surgical. No one raised their voice. No one reached for water. They were too locked in. Jasmine sat at the head of the table, tapping a pen against her notepad. On the monitor in front of them, the paused clip from the education panel showed Melania's face mid-sentence, frozen on the smirk, the calculated pause, the directness of her stare. Play it again, Jasmine said quietly. Brianna tapped the spacebar. The audio rolled for the 50th time. Jasmine didn't blink. When it ended, she looked up. If we let that slide, we're giving every person who wants to discredit us permission to say whatever they want, truth or not. Her chief legal advisor, Raymond Knox, leaned forward. We've been looking into defamation statutes. For public figures, the bar is high, but not impossible. Especially with what came in last night. He slid a manila folder across the table. Jasmine opened it. Inside were screenshots of internal White House emails. One in particular stood out. It was sent 3 days before the panel, warning Melania's team that Jasmine Crockett had an airtight ethics record, and that personal accusations without evidence could backfire. The reply from a senior aide read. Simply, she'll handle it. Base will eat it up. Jasmine looked up. How did we get these? Anonymous sender, Raymond said. Secure drop. Might be the same guy who called you yesterday. And they're real, we're verifying the headers now. Dates, names, language, it all lines up. It's solid enough to make a move. The room went silent. Jasmine said, flatly, file the complaint. No one objected. Raymond leaned back. We'll start drafting. It'll be federal. Defamation. Reputational harm. Intent. If we bring this to court, we're not doing it to make noise, we're doing it to win. Good, Jasmine said. Because I don't want headlines. I want accountability. Across the table, Brianna added, we should prepare for blowback. This'll get messy. The media will spin it. The right will call you divisive. A stunt. Let them, Jasmine replied. Because this time they're not just dragging me. They're dragging every woman who's worked her way up just to be slapped down in public. There was a long pause. No one argued. They didn't need to. It was true. Just then, Jasmine's phone buzzed. A text. From her father. Saw what she said. Proud of you. Don't back down. She held the phone a moment, then set it face down on the table. So what's next? She asked. We go quiet, Raymond answered. No public statements. No posts. We file clean. We file hard. Let the lawsuit do the talking. How long before it goes public? About 30 minutes after we submit. Someone's gonna leak it. Might be them, might be the court. Doesn't matter. Let them see it, Jasmine said. Let them know I'm not here to play along. Just then, a staffer entered, holding a printout. You need to see this. He handed it to Brianna, who scanned it and passed it to Jasmine. It was a screenshot from a trending social post on a fringe blog, claiming to have Jasmine's financial records from the last 3 years, accusing her of hundreds of thousands in a suspicious expenses. Fake, Brianna said. Numbers are pulled from 2 different databases. Dates don't even line up. Jasmine stared at the page. This is coordinated. They're trying to paint the picture before we ever step into court. Raymond nodded. That's why we go first. Control the narrative. File strong. File fast. But truth alone wouldn't be enough. They needed precision. Proof. A story the public could follow without getting lost in the noise. 2 days later, Jasmine Crockett walked into the federal courthouse in San Antonio wearing a simple navy suit and a calm, unreadable expression. No grand entrance. No entourage. Just Raymond Knox and Brianna trailing a step behind. The cameras were already waiting. Flashes went off as they approached the doors. Reporters shouted. Jasmine didn't pause. Didn't flinch. She pushed the door open and disappeared inside. By the time the file stamp hit the official complaint, the clock read 9:00 a.m. The lawsuit was 48 pages. Tight. Unflinching. Supported by exhibits. The charge, defamation with reckless disregard for the truth. The amount, $100 million in damages, both reputational and punitive. Inside the filing were 3 anchors. First, the viral footage, authenticated and timestamped, with statements from expert linguists who analyzed Melania's tone, phrasing, and delivery. Their conclusion, her wording was deliberate, meant to suggest criminal behavior without naming names. Second, the leaked internal emails. They showed the First Lady's team had been warned. That they knew Crockett's record was clean. That they ignored it. One reply proved strategic intent. Not concern for truth, just a win for the base. Third, sworn affidavits. From Crockett's campaign treasurer. From House Ethics Counsel. From 2 congressional staffers who'd handled her financial reports. Each one confirmed her record was clean, audited annually, and never under investigation. Raymond handed the documents to the clerk. There was no press conference waiting outside. No big announcement, but by 10:15 a.m., the entire complaint was online. A local reporter got the tip and didn't wait. The headline dropped within the hour. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett files $100 million defamation lawsuit against First Lady Melania Trump over calculated lie. The story exploded across national outlets. A screenshot of the complaint's first page, bold text, Melania Trump listed clearly as the defendant, spread like wildfire in the courthouse elevator. Brianna read tweets out loud as they poured in. They didn't expect her to come with receipts. Congresswoman Crockett didn't play checkers, she played chess. Melania picked the wrong one. Jasmine stood quietly, watching the floor numbers light up. "We're going to get dragged through the mud," she said. Raymond nodded. "That's already happening. But now we've got a narrative, and it's based on truth." "And truth is enough?" she asked. "Sometimes it's not," he admitted. "But it's the only place to start." Outside, stepping into the midday light, the press had doubled. Microphones reached forward. Reporters shouted over one another. "Congresswoman Crockett, what's your message to the First Lady?" Jasmine paused. "Just for a second, the same message I'd give to any powerful person who thinks their platform gives them permission to smear someone without consequence," she said. "You don't get to lie about people's character and walk away like nothing happened." Then she walked to the car without another word. Inside the vehicle, her phone lit up again, but this time it wasn't threats. It was support. A message from her old law professor. A voicemail from a conservative colleague. "In the House, I don't always agree with you, but you're right to fight this one." One text stood out most. A middle school teacher from Abilene wrote, "I show my girls your speeches during Civics Week. They're asking why someone would lie about you on national TV. I told them we don't always get to pick the fight, but we do get to choose how we answer." "Thank you for answering." Jasmine read it twice. Then looked out the window and said quietly, "All right. Let's see how far they want to take this." But while Jasmine was gaining ground in the court of public opinion, the White House was preparing its counterattack, and it wasn't going to stay quiet much longer. For the first 24 hours after the lawsuit dropped, there was nothing. No statement. No tweet. Not even a denial. Melania's account stayed silent. The vacuum only made things louder. Cable networks filled the space with speculation. Was Melania off script? Were the emails real? Would the First Lady have to testify? Under oath, some legal experts called it a stretch. Others said what Jasmine had was rare evidence, intent, and motive. By the second day, the silence cracked. 3 major outlets released the same carefully worded statement from Melania's office. The First Lady denies all allegations contained in Congresswoman Crockett's complaint. At no point were her remarks directed at any specific individual, nor were they intended to cause reputational harm. The First Lady has long championed transparency and accountability in public service and will not be distracted by political theatrics. Conservative news sites grabbed it immediately. The spin ignited. Crockett weaponizes courts to silence political rivals. First Lady under fire for speaking the truth. On Capitol Hill, the House Republican Majority Leader called a press conference. He labeled the lawsuit an abuse of the judicial system for political gain. He didn't mention the leaked emails. He didn't repeat the First Lady's words. Just painted Jasmine as hysterical, opportunistic, and thin-skinned inside her office. No one was shocked. "They're running the playbook," Brianna muttered. "Ignore the facts. Call it a stunt. Frame her as the problem." Raymond pulled up a press alert. "She's doing interviews now. Local news in Florida first. Then syndicated radio." "What's she saying?" Jasmine asked. "That she was speaking generally about government waste. That people are twisting her words. And that she's too dignified to be baited." Jasmine let out a dry laugh. She threw the first punch and now wants to pretend her hands are clean. The headlines weren't any better, even the ones from supposedly neutral outlets. Can Crockett prove harm, or just hurt feelings? Melania's comment, misstep or manufactured outrage. When women battle in politics, who wins? It was exhausting. Jasmine reminded herself why she was doing it. It wasn't for airtime. It wasn't for drama. It was for her name. Her record. The example she spent her whole career trying to build. She knew Melania was a harder opponent than she looked. Quiet. Glamorous. Controlled. The kind of woman who could throw a jab and disappear behind a smile. That made her harder to challenge. You think she'll try to settle? Jasmine asked Raymond one evening. No chance, he replied. Not with this much coverage. The second she settles, it reads like guilt. Her team will stall this as long as they can. Good, Jasmine said. Then I've got time to show people what this really is. By midweek, the smear campaign escalated. A conservative think tank published a so-called report on Jasmine's voting record and campaign expenses. It pointed to alleged irregularities. The claims were thin, cherry-picked, misinterpreted, lacking context. But it didn't matter. Certain news outlets ran with it. They're building a wall of noise, Brianna said. Flood the zone with garbage until people don't know what to believe. That's fine, Jasmine said. We'll keep showing our receipts. What kept her grounded was the flood of messages from people who actually mattered. Voters. Staffers. Constituents. A high school student from Shreveport wrote, "I want to run for office one day. And now I know how hard you have to fight just to protect your name," but Jasmine knew this fight wouldn't be won on TV. Or in tweets. She needed more than sympathy. She needed something irrefutable. Something that could be spun to be why the start of the following week, it wasn't just a lawsuit anymore, it had become a national spectacle. Every major news outlet had assigned a correspondent to the Crockett-Trump case. Cable networks ran side-by-side clips, Jasmine at press briefings, Melania at ribbon cuttings. The late-night shows had their jokes. Melania threw shade with more precision than a drone strike, one host quipped, but beneath the headlines, the country was splitting, again not on one side, civil rights groups, ethics watchdogs, and growing blocks of independent voters. Many weren't fans of Jasmine's politics, but they recognized the pattern. A woman rises on merit, then gets slapped down in public for daring to hold her ground. On the other side, partisan pundits, influencers, and culture warriors who painted Jasmine as fragile, attention-hungry, and out for a paycheck. And Jasmine? She wasn't flinching. She'd stepped into the storm, and now she planned to walk through it. Social media poured gasoline on the fire. Clips of Jasmine from old committee hearings were edited out of context and reposted with mocking captions. Memes surfaced, ridiculing her expressions, her voice, even the clothes she wore. One widely shared post cropped an image to make it look like she was casually shopping during a disaster relief vote. It was completely fake, but by the time the truth caught up, the damage had already sunken inside her campaign office. Jasmine's team met daily, not to control the news, but to survive inside it. They were managing chaos, not optics. We're trending again, Brianna said, eyes locked on her screen. Good or bad? Jasmine asked. Both, Brianna replied. But the bad is louder today. Raymond didn't look up from his laptop. They've brought in 2 former administration figures for commentary. Both are denying the emails ever existed, claiming the leak is fake. We expected that, Jasmine said, steady. We've already authenticated the metadata. Their denial means nothing once we present. Still, it was exhausting, an endless wave of misinformation, dog whistles, and second-guessing. Friends called. Colleagues hesitated. Even some allies asked if she was sure she wanted to keep pushing. Then something shifted. Senator Evelyn Pratt, a moderate Republican from Kansas, someone Jasmine had publicly sparred with more than once, appeared on national television and broke ranks. This lawsuit might be uncomfortable for some in my party, she said. But the truth is, if any elected official, Democrat or Republican, was publicly and falsely accused on national television, they'd have every right to respond. I may not agree with Congresswoman Crockett on much, but I respect her willingness to defend her integrity, in court, the right way. It was a rare flicker of bipartisanship. And it mattered. The next morning's headlines reflected the shift. Republican senator backs Crockett's right to sue. Pratt's clip gained millions of views in a single evening. Jasmine's inbox filled again, this time with support. Pastors. Professors. Retired officers. Point one message came from a former judge in Arizona. In 30 years on the bench, I saw too many people accept public lies because they didn't have the resources to fight back. What you're doing matters, not just for you, but for the record. Jasmine read it 3 times. Then forwarded it to her dad. Still, the political divide remained sharp. Melania's team leaned into a narrative of victimhood. She appeared in a polished sit-down interview with a friendly network, sipping tea in a white tailored suit. I was speaking about a culture of waste, she said softly. Not any one person. If someone chooses to feel offended, that is not my responsibility. Within minutes, the interview was clipped, quoted, dissected. Back in Dallas, Jasmine stood in front of the screen watching in silence. She's good, Brianna muttered. She's mastered that whole "I'm above it all" tone. Yeah, Jasmine replied. But one thing I've learned, tone doesn't hold up in court. Facts do. Still, Jasmine knew facts weren't enough. She needed something more. Something that proved Melania hadn't just spoken carelessly, but intentionally. That proof came quietly. It was a Wednesday morning, when Raymond's phone buzzed with a secure file drop. No sender. No subject. Just one file. He opened it. Scanned it. Stopped. And read it again. It was a transcript. Unedited. Time-stamped. The header read, Internal Prep Meeting, First Lady Panel, March 1st, 2025, 9:45 a.m. Location, Eisenhower Executive Office Building. Attendees, 4 names. 2. Immediately recognizable, Melania Trump and her senior advisor, Kyla Renner. Raymond didn't wait. He picked up the phone. You need to see this. Now. Jasmine was at a charter school in San Antonio, talking to 8th grade girls about civic engagement. She slipped out quietly and met Raymond and Brianna at a borrowed office nearby. He laid the pages flat on the table. Who leaked it? She asked. No idea. But the language, tone, the people, it all lines up. Same circle as the last emails. The transcripts showed Melania's team rehearsing talking points for the panel. Early in the meeting, a communications staffer raised a concern. There's a Congresswoman on the panel, Crockett. Very popular with progressives. Strong funding record. Super clean ethics file. If we even hint at misused funds, it could backfire. Melania's reply was printed in black and white. People won't fact-check feelings. I'm not naming her. I'm making a point. It'll land. That sentence hung in the air. Brianna leaned in, whispering as she read, People won't fact-check feelings. That's what this was, Jasmine said. Not a misstep. A tactic. Raymond nodded. And it kills the defense that she wasn't talking about you directly. She knew. She was warned. She did it anyway. This isn't just defamation anymore, Jasmine said. It's premeditated. Now we've got intent, Raymond said. Is it admissible? Brianna asked. We'll verify it through a third-party forensic team, Raymond said. If it holds, it goes into discovery. It's a bombshell. They'll say it's fake, Brianna warned. Let them. Jasmine said. Let them chase shadows while we build the case. The team didn't leak the document. They didn't have to. That evening, Reckon Report, a digital news outlet, published the full transcript with annotations. The quote, People won't fact-check feelings, blazed across every headline. Anchors echoed it on every network. One host quipped, It's the new, let them eat cake. Suddenly, Melania's polished denials began to crumble. Her restraint looked rehearsed. Her innocence, paper-thin. That night, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table in Dallas, watching the coverage. Her father called again. His voice was different this time. Steadier. I was wrong to tell you to let it slide, he said. This wasn't about pride. This was about truth. You didn't know what they were planning, Jasmine said. None of us did. Yeah, he replied. But you knew what it meant. That's leadership, baby girl. Across the country, something shifted. The support Jasmine had been receiving in private started spilling into public spaces. College campuses. Community groups. Even editorial boards that had stayed silent now began to speak, and for the first time since this fight began, the tide was starting to turn. The Sacramento Standard put it plainly, what the First Lady did might not have involved shouting, naming names, or a direct insult, but that was exactly the brilliance and danger of coded attacks. When someone uses a national stage to wound a reputation through insinuation instead of fact, they're counting on one thing: silence. Jasmine Crockett didn't stay silent, but with the court date approaching, the real test lay ahead, stepping into a courtroom and proving not just that she'd been wronged, but that it mattered. For nearly 2 weeks, Jasmine had said nothing. No press conferences. No statements. No tweets. And then, on a quiet weekday morning, inside a union hall in San Antonio, she stood behind a modest podium ready to speak. There were no grand visuals, just folding chairs, an American flag, and the Texas banner behind her. No teleprompters. No spotlight. Just people. Reporters had arrived early after whispers circulated she might break her silence. Microphones pointed at her like drawn arrows. Her staff had asked if she wanted to rehearse. She'd declined. "I'm not reading anything," she told Raymond. "I know exactly what I want to say." She took a breath, stepped up, and began. "A lot's been said about me these past few weeks. Some of it's outright lies. Some of it's speculation dressed up as reporting. But today, I'm here to make one thing clear, not just for myself, but for every woman who's ever had to sit in a room and swallow her pride while someone else rewrote her story." The room held still when Melania Trump made that comment. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. She looked me in the face and said what she said, live on national television. And she knew it would land like a punch. She didn't care if it was true. She only cared that it would stick. She paused, let the silence hold, then continued, "But this isn't just about one comment. It's about what happens when powerful people realize they can weaponize half-truths, because lies are easier when the damage is subtle." The crowd remained quiet, absorbing every word. It's about how women, especially black women in politics, are told to take it. To smile, stay calm, and move on. Because if we push back, we're angry. If we speak up, we're aggressive. And if we go to court, we're looking for attention. A ripple moved through the crowd, slow nods, a quiet hum of agreement. "Let me be clear. I didn't sue the First Lady for a headline. I sued her because I've worked too hard, too openly, and too honestly to let anyone smear me with a lie and walk away untouched." Her voice stayed low and even, but there was iron behind every word. If we don't push back when we're lied about, we normalize dishonesty. If we don't defend our names, we teach the next generation that silence is strength. That respect is earned quietly. That's not the truth. That's conditioning. She leaned in, almost whispering, "So, I'm here. I'm not backing down. And I'm not apologizing for defending my record. The truth doesn't need a filter. It just needs to be told." The applause didn't explode. It rose, slow and strong. The kind of applause that didn't celebrate a performance, but affirmed a principle. She took no questions. She didn't stick around for press. She went home, silenced her phone, and sat on the porch with her father as the sun dipped behind the trees. "You sounded like your mother up there," he said. "She wouldn't have taken that mess either." Jasmine smiled. "She taught me better." By the end of the night, the video of her speech had racked up millions of views. Something began to shift. People stopped asking if she was overreacting. They started asking why more elected officials didn't defend themselves when attacked. Students shared her clip in classrooms. A prominent women's legal defense group issued a formal statement of support. A retired federal judge went on cable news and called the case a potential precedent setter for public figure accountability. Not everyone was moved. Melania's legal team called the speech a blatant attempt to sway public opinion and corrupt the legal process. Conservative pundits accused Jasmine of playing the race card, of manufacturing a victim story, even of chasing fame. Jasmine said nothing. "They don't get to define my motive," she told Brianna. "They've said enough. Now it's the court's turn." But as trial day approached, the landscape grew more volatile. On the morning the trial began, the San Antonio courthouse was flanked by crowds. Protesters and supporters stood shoulder to shoulder. Some signs read "Accountability now." Others, "Hands off Melania." The drizzle didn't stop them. No one left. Inside the courtroom, the tension was thick. Jasmine sat at the plaintiff's table in a charcoal blazer, her expression steady, her hair pulled back. Across from her sat Melania Trump, stone-faced, surrounded by high-powered attorneys. She didn't look at Jasmine once. The judge entered just after 9 a.m. No cameras were allowed, but from the moment opening statements began, the pressure was unmistakable. Raymond stood to deliver Jasmine's case. "This trial is about truth," he began. "It's about what happens when public figures use their platforms to harm others, intentionally, for political gain. My client wasn't accused of anything directly. But on national television, she was painted as corrupt by someone who had been warned not to do it." He paused. "Words, especially from those in power, have consequences." Melania's attorney countered with poise. "The First Lady spoke in broad terms about government waste," he said. "She named no one. She made no direct accusation. If Congresswoman Crockett felt targeted, that's unfortunate, but it is not the First Lady's responsibility to manage interpretations." It was a well-crafted argument, meant to detach intention from impact, but Jasmine's team wasn't building their case on assumptions. On the second day of testimony, Raymond entered the internal email chain, authenticated by an outside forensic firm, into the record. And the real case began. One by one, messages appeared on the courtroom screen, each timestamped, each attributed, each adding weight to Jasmine's case. It wasn't just about what was said anymore. It was who said it, when, and why. Then came the March 1st transcript. There were no gasps, those aren't allowed in court, but the silence that followed the line, "People won't fact-check feelings," said everything. The jurors shifted in their seats. One, a middle-aged woman in a teal cardigan, began scribbling furiously in her notebook. The defense tried to downplay the document as contextually incomplete, but the damage had landed. Then came the twist no one expected. Kyla Renner, Melania Trump's longtime advisor, took the stand. And under oath, she confirmed what many had suspected: the education panel had been used to shape public perception under the guise of fiscal concern. Raymond seized the moment. "So you're saying the goal was to create a perception?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Even if that perception damaged the reputation of a sitting member of Congress? We didn't expect that reaction. But you were warned it might happen." "Yes," she said. "But Mrs. Trump believed she had a right to speak on public issues, even if it came at someone else's expense?" Renner hesitated. "That wasn't the intention. But it was the result." The courtroom was motionless. Then it was Jasmine's turn. She took the stand on day 4. Poised. Still. Her hands folded neatly in her lap. The defense went on the offensive. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you believe every unflattering comment about a public official should be grounds for a lawsuit?" "No," she answered. "But I do believe lies that damage someone's name shouldn't be passed off as opinions. Isn't it true you've received more attention during this case than ever before in your political career?" "That may be true," she said calmly. "But I didn't file this to be seen. I filed it because I refuse to be lied about on live television without consequence. And what do you say to critics who call this a publicity stunt?" Jasmine didn't flinch. They've never had their name dragged through the mud while their students, their parents, and their neighbors watched it happen. This wasn't a stunt. This was survival. There were no theatrics, just clarity. The judge called for recess. Outside, social media erupted. "Crockett holds her ground. Trump advisor confirms targeted messaging." Momentum was shifting. Again. That night, Jasmine returned to her hotel, feet swollen, mind buzzing. Her phone rang. It was her niece in Austin. "A girl in my class said you're her favorite politician," she said. "She told us you made her mom cry, in a good way." Jasmine smiled. "Tell her I said thank you. And tell her this, it's okay to fight back when someone tries to rewrite who you are." But now, all that remained was the jury, 12. Strangers tasked with deciding whether Melania Trump's words were careless or calculated. Deliberations lasted 12 hours. They paused for dinner, returned before dawn. Outside, reporters waited in the muggy San Antonio heat, whispering into cameras, speculating. No one really knew. Because this wasn't just about politics, it was about whether the justice system could still draw a line between rhetoric and defamation, especially when power is involved. Jasmine barely slept. Her father napped on the couch. Brianna paced. Raymond sat at the desk, reviewing notes that no longer mattered. At 6 a.m., the call came. "The jury's back," the clerk said. "Verdict reads at 8. Inside the courthouse, the air was thick. The judge entered. Jasmine stood. So did Melania. Neither looked at the other. The jury foreman, a retiree from Amarillo, held the verdict in trembling hands. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff." The words hit like a quiet drumbeat. A few gasps escaped before the judge tapped his gavel. Jasmine didn't react. She just exhaled, for the first time in what felt like forever. The total award, $83 million in damages. It wasn't the full $100 million. It didn't have to be. Because what mattered more was the message. Yes, the comment caused harm. Yes, it was reckless. And yes, it was wrong. Melania's legal team immediately requested a stay. Denied. The ruling would stand, pending appeal. Outside, a wall of microphones waited. Jasmine stepped up. No notes. Just the truth. "This wasn't about revenge," she said. "This was about repair. And it was about truth. I didn't ask for this fight, but I wasn't going to walk away from it either." She paused. Looked out at the crowd. Let this be a reminder, no one, elected or not, gets to weaponize words without consequence. Not anymore. She glanced at Brianna, standing nearby. Then she looked directly at the cameras. "We are not powerless against lies. We are not voiceless when we're attacked. And we are not obligated to stay silent just to seem strong." The clip aired live and then exploded across every platform. But it wasn't just lawmakers sharing it. It was nurses, teachers, veterans, small business owners. People who understood what it meant to be defined by a lie, and what it took to reclaim your name. Commentators flooded the airwaves. Some hailed the verdict as a breakthrough for accountability. Others warned it set a dangerous precedent. Melania's team filed an appeal, citing media bias and excessive damages. But the public had moved on from legal spin. They remembered Jasmine's steadiness. Her refusal to back down. Her quiet insistence that the truth mattered. She returned to Congress different. Not louder, just sharper. Some colleagues offered silent handshakes. Others pulled her aside. One freshman rep from New Mexico whispered, "I didn't think I could survive this place, until I saw how you handled all that." Jasmine smiled. "You don't have to handle everything. Just don't let them lie and walk away clean." Later, alone on the Capitol steps, she reread an old message, the one from the middle school teacher in Abilene. "We don't always get to pick the fight, but we do get to choose how we answer." She smiled. That was the truth. And if Jasmine Crockett proved anything, it's this: silence isn't always grace. Sometimes, strength is saying the hard thing out loud, with your head high and your name still intact. If you've followed Jasmine's journey this far, ask yourself this: when someone misrepresents you, when they write a version of your story that isn't yours, will you stand up? Will you correct the record? Because sometimes, fighting for your name is fighting for who gets to define the truth. Subscribe if that matters to you. Share this with someone who needs to hear it.